Hey everyone, welcome to this channel, and I am Heimelin Ibaloro, a B.Ed fourth year student of Norso Shatten campus. Today, today we will explore on the journey of how Renaissance period affects our arts from traditional to a modern world. We will explore the Renaissance period, its artistic achievements, and how art evolved through different movements. By the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of how art expresses the finer things in our life. Today, we will be talking about art appreciation. Afterwards, there will be also questions after each presentation of the topic. We will be able to These are the learning competencies or intellectual competencies that will be able to learn, demonstrate the ability to interpret artistic creations as expressions of the finer things in life, and manifest informed appreciation of various forms of art. Lesson, we will be able to explain, or I will be able to explain the characteristic of the Renaissance period and its influences in art, identify and describe Renaissance art techniques, recognize the famous Renaissance artists and their works, understand the elements of art, and apply them to analyze different artworks. Lastly, differentiate major art movements and their impact in our society. Let's talk first about the Renaissance period. Or do you have an idea on when when is the Renaissance period? Or have you ever seen the Mona Lisa painting or the School of Athens painting? What do you think makes this painting special? Afterwards, or after this session, then you will be able to answer what are the difference in the two movements or between the two artworks of different artists, and what do these things or art make the these or make them special. Let's talk about first the Renaissance. Renaissance meaning rebirth. It was a period of cultural revival that took place from the 14th century to the 17th century. It marked the return of classical ideas from ancient Greece and Rome. Some artists, scientists, and thinkers of this time focused on humanism, the belief in human potential, and the beauty of the natural world. Yes, so from the word Renaissance, meaning rebirth, it was spanned from the 14th to 17th century, marking the revival of classical period or classical Greek and Roman ideals in art, literature, and science, which also emphasizes the human potential, the beauty, and realism. To move forward, there are key themes of the Renaissance period. First is realism, the perspective and the study of human form. Yes, actually, realism was flourished in Italy and later spread across on in Europe. Let's talk first about the key themes of Renaissance art. Let's talk first about realism from the word real. So artists aim to depict subjects more naturally and accurately, meaning artists aim to make their paintings look as natural as possible. For an example of that is the detailed facial expressions in Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Yes, the Mona Lisa painting that shows the facial expression and fine details that reflect realism. Yes. Second is about perspective. This is a technique that made paintings appear three-dimensional. During Renaissance, most painters introduced Renaissance or perspective use Renaissance or most Renaissance painters introduced depth in their painting using linear perspective. Example of that is the Raphael's The School of Athens, which uses linear perspective. And also the School of Athens um, demonstrate the technique of perspective, which create a three-dimensional illusion. Then we can see the difference of these afterwards. Third is the study of human form. This is the third key theme in really Renaissance period. So most artists studied anatomy and to create lifelike sculptures and paintings. For an example of that is the Michelangelo David, the David sculpture and paintings, which showcase the detailed muscle structure. Yes, the Michelangelo's David structure is a prime example of study of human form. Now let's proceed to the Renaissance art techniques. Yes, there are different Renaissance techniques. First, about the linear perspective that we have a while ago, and key themes, the perspective theme. It is one of the art techniques, the linear perspective. This technique creates depth by making parallel lines converge at a vanishing point. Give an example of a painting that uses this, or do you have an idea of some painters or artists that already painted a sample technique of linear perspective? Yes. One example of that is the School of Athens. Then the second technique is the chiaroscuro. This is the use of strong contrast between light and dark, adding drama and depth. One example of this is the Caravaggio's dramatic painting. This picture, yes, this picture, the Caravaggio's dramatic paintings. And third is the sfumato. Third is the sfumato, meaning a blending technique that creates a soft, smoky effect, making transitions between the color seamless. One example of this is the painting of Leonardo da Vinci, the Mona Lisa, which subtle the shading around her face, creating realism. Lastly, the fourth one is the fresco painting. It is a technique where artists paint on wet plaster and making the colors blend with the wall surface. An example of this is the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel, this image, and it is a masterpiece of biblical stories that was painted using the fresco. Alright, so since we all know the four techniques, which are the linear perspective, chiaroscuro, and sfumato, and the fresco painting, let's have a question. Which Renaissance technique was used to create the illusion of depth by making parallel lines converge at a vanishing point. Is it A. Sfumato, B. chiaroscuro, C. linear perspective, D. fresco painting? Yes, the correct answer is the linear perspective, which makes painting look three-dimensional by directing the viewer's eye towards a single point in the distance. That is the correct answer, the linear perspective. Now, let's explore the lives and masterpieces of four of the most influential artists in the Renaissance period. Let's talk first who is Leonardo da Vinci. It was 1452 to 1900s. He is a he was a Renaissance artist and engineer known for paintings like the Last Supper and Mona Lisa and for inventions like a flying machine. Yes. True that Leonardo da Vinci is a Renaissance man. He excelled in painting, anatomy, engineering, and even science. Most of his famous works are the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, which these pictures are. The first picture is the Last Supper. It was fresco painting which depict Jesus' final meal with his disciples. And the second picture is the Mona Lisa that is known for its mysterious smile and using sfumato technique. Then let's proceed to the second artist. He is Michelangelo during 1475 to 1564 hundreds, and he was renowned sculptor and painter. He also sculpted the famous David and painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And this is his artwork. The sculpture of David, this one showing the human anatomy or human form, and the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Yes, the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Um, yes, a Sistine Chapel ceiling, a masterpiece of also a biblical stories that is painted in fresco. And David is a sculpture. Yes, a sculpture is made of a marble that is made of a massive marble statue. Yes, it is a massive marble statue. And those are the artwork of Michelangelo. Third is Raphael. He is known for harmony and balance in his compositions. He also created the School of Athens, showing classical influence. Yes, Raphael. He was known for balance and harmony. And Raphael painted the School of Athens, this one, the School of Athens, featuring the philosophers like Plato and Aristotle. Next is Donatello. He was a specialized in sculpting and was an early innovator. He was also the famous artist for St. George and David bronze. And Donatello was one of the earliest Renaissance sculptors that created these two, St. George and a bronze David. Yes, this one is St. George. A sculptures like St. George. Since we know the four artists, famous artists during Renaissance period, here is a questions. Question. Which Renaissance artist is known for painting the Last Supper and Mona Lisa? Who do you think these artists that paint the Last Supper and Mona Lisa? A. Michelangelo, B. Leonardo da Vinci, C. Raphael, D. Donatello. In a count of five, yes, five, four, three, two, one. Yes, the answer is Leonardo da Vinci. He was a painter of the Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. Now let's proceed to the elements of art. Art has foundational elements that define its visual appeal. Here are some: color, line, shape, and form and texture. Now let's in form as well as texture. Now let's first talk about color. Colors play a crucial role in art by setting the mood, drawing attention, and conveying messages. The hue, or what you call, or it refers to the name of a color such as red, blue, yellow, black, and etc. And value describes how light or dark a color is. And intensity or saturation, it refers to the brightness or dullness of a color. And some examples of the artworks are the Van Gogh's Starry Night, which he uses high intensity blues and yellows, this first picture, and creating a dreamlike swirling effect. And the second one is the Picasso's Blue Period, which uses monochromatic blue tones to depict sorrow and depression. Now, let's do a quick exercise. I want you to close your eyes and imagine a peaceful scene. What colors do you see? Now imagine an intense moment. How do the colors change? Now let's do this in 2 minutes. Close your eyes, imagine a peaceful scene. And what colors do you see? And how do these colors changes? Are there any changes? Or these color also show emotion of us? Yes. Now let's move to line. Line define shapes and create a movement in a composition. Artists uses different types of line to convey emotion and meaning. First is the horizontal lines. Yes, it creates a sense of calm and stability. The horizontal line. Example, the landscape like Monet's impressionist works. Yes. Second is vertical lines, which represent strength and power. Example of that is the Gothic cathedrals with towering columns. Yes. And lastly, the curved lines convey softness and fluidity. Example of that is the Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. Let's move on to the third, the shape and form. Shape are two-dimensional, while forms are three-dimensional. Understanding the difference is crucial in analyzing sculpture, paintings, and architectures. So there are two shapes, the geometric shapes and organic shapes. When we say geometric shapes, these are the squares, the circles, and triangles that create order. For example of that is the Mondrian's abstract paintings. And organic shapes are found in nature and have flowing, irregular edges. Example of that is the Georgia O'Keeffe's floral paintings. And lastly, we have texture. Yes, texture, which refers to how a surface feels or appears to feel. And there are two, the actual texture and the implied texture. When we say actual texture, this can be physically felt, and implied texture created through artistic techniques. For an example of actual texture, a rough surface of a sculpture. Yes, an actual texture. And when we say applied texture, an example of that is the Van Gogh brushstrokes in sunflowers. So those are two textures, which means textures refers to how surface feel or appears to feel. I want you to think about your favorite artwork. How do you think its texture contribute to its emotional impact? Think of a favorite artwork. How do you think its texture contribute to its emotional impact? Alright, yes. And let's move on to the major art movements. But before that, I have here a question. Which of the following is not considered an element of an art? Is it line, color, proportion, or texture? What do you think is the answer or not related or not an element of an art? Yes, it is the proportion. Because among the four choices, the line, color, and textures are elements of an art. Alright, let's move on to the famous art movements and their artists. Let's first talk about these are the four famous art movements: the Impressionism, Expressionism, Surrealism, and Abstract art. First, we have Impressionism. Yes, let's talk first about Impressionism. When we say Impressionism, it only focuses on light and movement rather than precise details. Yes, Impressionist. Impressionism focuses on light and movement only, rather than the precise details. An example of that are the Claude Monet's water lilies, which uses short, quick brush strokes to capture the fleeting moments. And second is the um, artwork is the Edgar Degas ballet dancers, which also depicts the movement with pastel shades. And let's key characteristic of Impressionism. These are the loose brush strokes, focuses on capturing light, and painted outdoor scene. That is in Impressionism. It only focuses on light and movement. So these are some of the artists in Impressionist: Claude Monet and Edgar Degas. And we have second movement is the Expressionism. When we say Expressionism, expressionists conveyed raw emotion rather than realistic depictions. It's a raw emotion and not a realistic depictions. And one example of that is the Scream or the Starry Night. The Starry Night and the Scream that was created by Edvard Munch, which a distorted figure against a swirling sky representing anxiety. And the second one is the Edgar Scheele's portraits, which shows exaggerated lines express tension and intensity. So in expressionism, it only conveyed a raw emotion. You have to express how you feel and not on realistic depictions. Remember that there are key characteristics in Expressionism. These are bold colors and distorted figures, and it only focuses on emotional experiences. We have third the surrealism. Yes, surrealism. And before that, here are the two artists in Expressionism that see these are Edvard Munch and Egon Schiele. Now let's move on to surrealism. Yes, surrealists painted dreamlike subconscious world from the word real, surrealism. As you can see, it's like this picture shows a real life, dreamlike world. Another example of that by Salvador Dali is the persistence of memory. Yes, he is Salvador Dali, and one of his most influential work, The Melting Clocks, symbolizes the fluidity of time, is the persistence of memory. If you notice, it's like a dreamlike um, painted painting. And second is by Rene Magritte, The Son of Man. A floating apple obscure, a man's face symbolizing hidden identity. There are also key characteristics of surrealism. These are only dreamlike bizarre imagery, and it's also the juxtaposition of isolated or unrelated objects. Yes. And fourth is the cubism. First, let's talk about first the abstract art. Abstract art. When we say abstract art, this focus on forms and color. And most of the artists are Piet Mondrian and Jackson Pollock. So these are the two artists of abstract art. Piet Mondrian and Jackson Pollock. And last we have Cubism, the art movement also. A cubist or the cubist broke down object into geometric shape from the word cube. So it's a geometric shapes. And some artists include Pablo Picasso and George Braque. And most of their art are geometric shapes which have multiple perspectives. In Pablo Picasso's work The Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, which shows an abstract female figures influenced by a Mary African past. And second is by George Braque, The Violin and Candlestick, which have multiple perspectives on one canvas. And here are some key characteristics when we say cubism. It only focuses on geometric forms and multiple viewpoints. Now, if you could paint a surrealist or cubist artwork about a current issue, what would it look like? Yes, if I were to ask if I could paint a surrealist or cubist artwork about the current issue, then it will look like um a money, a money that is being distorted. Yes, and doesn't mean and that means a lot for me because without money today, we will not survive or we can't buy anything what we want, right? Now let's continue and move on. Of glass realism. In the world real, it's only detailed representation of real life. Some of artists are Gustave Courbet, Jean-Francois Millet. Now let's understand the difference between Impressionism versus realism. We should understand art through questions. When we say Impressionism, it uses loose brushstroke and light effects. And when we say realism, it aims for detailed representation of reality. That's the difference between the two. Now, question. Which art movement is characterized by dreamlike imagery and subconscious theme? What do you think is the answer? Do you think it's Impressionism, Surrealism, Cubism, and Realism? Okay, it's what do you think is the answer? Yes, it's about Surrealism, which means that surrealists painted dreamlike in subconscious worlds. Question next. Which of the following is a way art influences society? A. It only serves as decoration. B. It preserves history and raises social awareness. C. It has no effect on culture or traditions. Or D. It prevents cultural expression. Yes, the answer is B. It preserves history and raises social awareness.
Ever walked past a mural, watch a film, or listen to a song that made you stop and think, why do you think art has this effect on us? Art is not just about beauty, it's a mirror of society. It records history, expresses emotions, sparks social change, and influences culture. Throughout history, artists have used their work to capture revolutions, injustices, and human struggles. Now, I want you to think and close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a painting filled with reds, oranges, and yellows. What emotion do you feel? Now, picture a painting dominated by blues and greens. How does your mood change? Colors have a psychological effect on us. Colors have a psychological effect on us. Artists use them strategically to evoke certain feelings. Now, based on what you have seen around us, all we can see in our surroundings and even things are made of colors. There are role of color in art. For warm colors, they evoke energy and passion. For cool colors, it creates calmness, being relaxed or at peace. Colors influences emotions and atmosphere. Yes, it is true that color also shows an emotion, can depict an emotion even in human beings or what we have seen in the surroundings. Now let's proceed and what are the different colors from the two, warm colors and the cool colors. Alright, so let's start from warm colors, the red, orange, and yellow. Red shows passion, love, and danger. An example of artwork is the Van Gogh's bedroom in Arles, which uses red for intensity. And orange, the energy, enthusiasm. Example of that is the Matisse's The Red Studio creates vibrancy. And for yellow, it means happiness and warmth. One example of that is the Van Gogh's Sunflowers that conveys joy. And let's proceed to the cool colors. These are blue, green, and purple. For blue colors, it shows calmness and sadness. An example of that is that Picasso's blue period reflects melancholy. Green which shows growth, peace. An example of that is Monet's gardens that evoke serenity. And purple, showing mystery and creativity. An example of that is the symbolic use in Byzantine art. Alright, let's move on to art and emotion. Art speaks where words fail. Have you ever seen an artwork that made you feel something deeply? And what was it? Art connects to human emotions in many ways that words alone cannot. Artists use color, shape, and technique to elicit joyness, sadness, awe, or empathy. There are emotional resonance and personal experiences. For an example is the Frida Kahlo self-portraits that reflect pain and resilience. Another also example is the color-filled paintings by Mark Rothko, which create an emotional atmosphere. When we say meta emotions, it is an artworks that trigger deeper emotion because of their technical complexity. One example of that is the Michelangelo Pieta, which the marble looks so lifelike. It moves people to tears. Now question, can art make you feel emotions that you weren't expecting? Why? Then you can answer that because you are able to understand how art and emotion are distinct to each other or similar to each other. What I said, joy, sadness, and empathy. It also resonate and connect viewers to art through personal experiences. That is why most paintings or artwork that we have seen showcase the artist's own perceptions or experiences in life or personal experiences. Then I have also said the meta emotion. One example of that is the painting of Edward Munch, The Scream, symbolizing anxiety. Yes, imagine standing alone, overwhelmed by an unexplainable fear. This is the moment Edward Munch sculptured The Scream. Yes, this painting was painted during it in 1893. It is one of the most recognized expressions of anxiety and existential dread. Yes, imagine some of the people or even teenager feels that way. Interpreting art. It is very important that we understand what is art. Have you ever looked at an abstract painting and thought, what does this even mean? Yes, every time or we can see something that is new to us, this is the questions in our mind, right? We question, what does this painting mean? If we couldn't understand the complexity of that painting or even artworks. Understanding art enhances appreciation. It plays a role in connecting with emotions that depicted in art. Empathy and emotional connection. One example of that is by Guernica that was created by Picasso, which evokes the horrors of war that I have said earlier. Let's proceed to contemporary art and innovation. Yes, contemporary art and innovation. Now, is there a changes or not or none? What do you think art looks like today? Is it the same? Is it different before or is it still? Yes, contemporary art and innovation, which focuses on concepts and meaning rather than traditional aesthetic. Now imagine, do you think that art looks today are the same with what is before or there is a difference? Or is it still just painting and sculpture? As you can see, in every part of the world, there are changes in arts. Am I right? Yes, it is true. Because of the new technology, because of the technology, which go beyond the traditional styles. And because of the new innovation, we can create something that is new. Let's differentiate between modern and contemporary art. When we say modern art, It is during 1860s to 1950s. It broke from the traditional or old way of making art. Like for an example, during the Renaissance, it's about painting or sculpture. And contemporary art is the post 1960s include digital and mixed media. For an example of that is the contemporary installation of piece. Example is the Yayoi Kusama's Infinity Rooms. Yes, the Yayoi Kusama Infinity Rooms. It is an example of a contemporary art. As you can see that it is made of technology. Yes, there is an innovation and changes in art. This is very unique, am I right? Now I have here a question to ask. How does contemporary art differ from modern art? What do you think? A. Contemporary art is strictly traditional, while modern art is experimental. B. Modern art broke away from classical styles, while contemporary art includes digital and multimedia elements. C. There is no difference between modern and contemporary art. D. Modern art focuses only on realism, while contemporary art rejects technology. Right. What do you think is the answer or the difference between contemporary and modern art? Since we all know, then we can answer that it is letter B. It is the modern art that broke away from classical style. That is yes. And while contemporary art includes digital, and multimedia elements. So we should always remember that the two difference between modern and contemporary art. There are also artistic techniques.
Combination of technical skills and complexity evokes strong emotion. That is one of the technique in artistic. Second is different mediums like painting, sculpture, and music impact viewers uniquely. Examples are the close-up of brush strokes or a sculptor working. As you can see, it is a very unique way or artistic techniques that could help us understand and see the different meaning of the art. Now let's proceed to art movements from Renaissance to modernism.
Understand the evolution of art, we need to explore how styles, techniques, and artistic philosophies have changed over time. The transition from Renaissance during 14th to 17th century to modernism in 1860s to 1950s marks some of the most significant shifts in artistic expression. The Renaissance focused on realism, harmony, and humanism, inspiring centuries of art, while modernism challenged traditional forms, emphasizing experimentation and abstraction. Today, contemporary art builds on both traditions incorporating digital and conceptual art. Think, or what makes a painting visually pleasing, and why do some artworks feel balanced while others feel chaotic? It is because of balance, contrast, movement, rhythm, unity, and variety. So these are the ways on why some artworks have different um, way of showing art because of this. An example of that is the asymmetry in Jackson Pollock's street paintings and the symmetry in Vince's Vitruvian Man. So I want you to try sketching something using symmetry or asymmetry as we can see in this picture. So which feels more natural? Is it symmetry or asymmetry? So this picture shows the symmetry versus asymmetry. By looking at this, we can explain the difference between the two. Now question, why is studying different art movements important? Is it A. It helps us understand cultural and historical developments? B. It has no real impact on society? C. It is only useful for professional artists. D. It is only relevant to European culture. Which is the answer? Yes, letter A. It helps us understand the cultural and historical developments. Studying art movements, we gain a deeper understanding of past societies, helping us see how people express their fears, dreams, and revolutions. Art acts as a visual record of human civilization, giving us insights into culture we may never experience firsthand. Second question. The principle of balance in art ensures A. Visual harmony and equilibrium. B. The use of monochromatic colors. C. An equal amount of positive and negative space. D. The dominance of warm colors. So what is the answer? Yes, letter A. Visual harmony and equilibrium. What is your favorite artwork or art style? Why do we create art? This is a question for everyone. Yes, art is more than just decoration. It's a language that communicates emotions, even stories, and even the history. If I were to answer the question, one of my favorite artwork is The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. Because of its emotional depth, unique technique, and powerful symbolism, it is it was a mental asylum that swirling, dreamlike sky and bold brush strokes that reflect both turbulence and hope. The contrast between the dark blue night and the glowing stars creates a sense of movement, as if the sky is alive with emotion. The thick texture brushstroke the impasto technique give the painting a raw, expressive quality, making it feel deeply personal. Beyond its beauty, the starry night symbolizes Van Gogh's inner struggles, his longing for peace, and his ability to find light even in the darkness. The same with what we have experienced, there's always a light in the darkness. Why do we create art? We create art to express emotion, tell stories, challenge ideas, and connect with others. Art allows individuals to communicate feelings that words cannot always capture. Art also serves as a historical record, preserving moments in times such as Picasso's Guernica, which protests the horrors of war. Beyond expression and documentation, art can inspire, change, and provoke thought, as seen in Banque's graffiti, which critiques social and political issues. Additionally, art fosters human connection, transcending language and cultural barriers, allowing people from different backgrounds to share experiences through paintings, music, dance, and digital media. Ultimately, art is a universal language that helps us make sense of the world, express individuality, and leave behind a creative legacy. So there are questions for all of you. Which art movement focused on capturing light and movement rather than detailed realism? Is it A. Surrealism, B. Expressionism, C. Cubism, D. Realism? In a count of five, what do you think is the answer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer is Impressionism. Because Impressionist artists like Claude Monet and Edgar Degas use loose brush strokes and bright colors to capture fleeting moments, especially in outdoor settings. Their goal was to depict how light interacts with objects rather than achieving photorealistic detail. Now let's proceed to the second question. How does chiaroscuro contribute to an artwork? A. It blends colors smoothly to create a hazy effect. B. It uses strong contrast between light and dark for depth. C. It creates multiple perspectives in a single composition. What do you think is the answer and how chiaroscuro as a technique contribute to an artwork? Yes, it is letter Letter B. It uses strong contrast between light and dark for depth. In chiaroscuro is a Renaissance technique that was used by artists like Caravaggio and Leonardo da Vinci to make subjects appear more three-dimensional by enhancing shadows and highlights. This technique creates drama and realism in most paintings. So that is why one of the contribution of a chiaroscuro technique is it uses a strong depth between light and dark. Next, which artist is known for dreamlike surreal imagery that explores the subconscious mind? A. Is it Vincent van Gogh? B. Pablo Picasso? C. Salvador Dali? And D. Michelangelo? Who do you think this artist that is known for dreamlike? So the answer is, who is this artist? He is Salvador Dali. Dali was a key figure in the Surrealist movement, famous for his bizarre and dreamlike paintings such as The Persistent of Memory, which features melting clocks, and Surrealist artists explored dreams, irrational thoughts, and the subconscious of mind. So the artist that is known for dreamlike and surreal imagery is Salvador Dali. Most of his paintings or artworks are mostly surrealism. History, art has been a powerful force shaping cultures, preserving history, and expressing human emotion in ways that words cannot. Whether through the realistic beauty of the Renaissance, the emotional intensity of Expressionism, or the bold experimentation of modernism, art continues to evolve, reflecting the world around us. Art is not just about aesthetic, it is a universal language that connects people across time and space. We have seen how warm and cool colors evoke different emotions, how art movements reflect societal changes, and how contemporary artists challenge traditional boundaries. From Van Gogh's The Starry Night capturing his inner struggles to Banksy's street art making political statements. Each piece of art tells a story, whether personal or global. More importantly, art belongs to everyone. It is not limited to museums or galleries. It exists in music, fashion, films, architecture, and even digital spaces. The way we interpret and engage with art is shaped by our own experiences, memories, and imagination. To close this session and lecture, art is everywhere. Remember that. It is in the way we express ourselves, the way we decorate our spaces, and even in the way we see the world. Whether we create or interpret it, or simply appreciate it, art is an essential part of what makes us human beings. That would be all, and thank you for listening. I hope you learned something from this simple and short discussion. God bless.